Welcome to our Migrants Journey, episode number 45. Wow, I'm still surprised that we could last so long. When I started this, I didn't think that it would last, but hey, here we are. So if you're watching this live, please comment, say hi, hello, so that I'm sure that you can hear me, you can see me, and everything technically is sorted out. Also, any questions at all in between, please shoot at us. Today, we have a very interesting story. Before we get into the story, let me just give a brief about what this show is about. I started Migrants Journey to give you a real life examples of the struggles of migrants and international students over here. You know, when you think about migration, it's usually a rosy picture that's painted. You know, you just come here and everything is sorted out, but often that's not the case. Migrants and international students struggle a lot to find their first job over here, and it has mostly to do with the cultural difference and how things work here. So my objective here is to give you as much as job search stories or success stories, and you learn from that, so that if you're looking for a job, look at it and tweak your approach. Or if you're planning to come over here in Australia, this would be a great foundation for your journny. So that's a brief about it. Again, I'm looking for comments, hi, hello. So if I don't see them, I'll feel that something is wrong. So just making sure that that's there. Now, for today's guest, I have Abhishek with me. So his story is very interesting, and I'd like to highlight, if you're an international student out there, wait to listen to the story. It's a very impressive one, especially because he made the huge jump of moving to regional Victoria to find a job, and he found a job within a few months. And could get into more details into that. So that's a very interesting thing and a very bold move that he took, and he successfully cracked it as well. So I get a lot of questions, people asking, hey, if I move to regional Victoria, what's the scene like? Because obviously for visa reasons, that it has an advantage, but the journey over there, it's not always easy. So let's hear it from him, from Abhishek itself. So I'll welcome him. Hey, Abhishek, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Vinesh?
Good, good. So let's get straight into things. I'm seeing a few comments, so I'm assuming people can hear us and see us.
Yeah.
But just give a brief intro of who you are and what you do, Abhishek.
Sure. So my name's Abhishek. I'm a business slash data analyst based in Adelaide. So my education has mainly been in the software space. So I studied computer science back in India, specializing mostly in data science.
Mm-hmm.
But after graduating from my bachelor's, I did a short stint at a startup. Realized I wanted to build my business acumen a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So when the time came for my master's, I decided to do business analytics. But again, a lot of the placements I did were data science specifics. So I
Yeah.
have kind of a broader profile than most.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's a bit about myself.
So you had very short experience after your bachelor's, is
Mhm.
that right? I think that was one of your challenges too. Coming here, no experience, international graduate, all this kind of piled up on you.
Yeah, so the tricky thing with me was I'd kind of decided, like, after having 6 months experience, that I wanted to do my master's, didn't want to wait too long. But coming here, I guess, like, one of the challenges you face is they look for at least a year, I've found, of experience. Uh, but yeah, for me, I just had 6 months, and then it was quite new to
Okay.
me, like
Okay.
professional working life. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
So
a big learning curve.
let's get into the beginning before we get into the exciting part. Sorry
Sure.
to whoever is seeing. We'll get into the boring stuff first and get into the exciting stuff. So the way I start this
Hmm.
journey, we go all the way back.
Hmm.
The moment you decided that you're moving to Australia,
Sure.
what sort of preparations did you do before you came here? I'm sure you had friends, or Google is your best friend, or whatever it is. So what sort of preparations did you do before you came here?
Sure. So, well, like, my experience has been a bit different than everyone else's, because most of my life I've actually lived outside of India. Just went to India for my undergrad. So pretty early
Mhm.
on, I knew that I wanted to go abroad to study, do a master's. But
Yep.
in the preparation to applying, I did look at universities, job opportunities, and obviously researched uh, like what are the steps to actually building a career in another country.
Hmm.
Luckily, I had a few friends and mentors who had taken a similar path, so I was able to talk to them and then find out at the ground level what the situation was and what our career prospects like.
Hmm.
So through my research, I found that Melbourne was one, a really good place to stay, and
Yeah.
second, it had like a lot of like world leading universities. So that really helped me make my decision on which country I wanted to go to and which city, which university, and also kind of decide career wise if it would be a good decision.
Excellent. So having those people who can guide you definitely helps you give, insider information, not insider
Hmm.
information. It's better than all those flashy stuff on Google, definitely. So that was
Definitely.
definitely good. So how was your reality when you landed here? How was the first few months like? Was it in as per your expectation? Because there's a huge cultural difference. The education system works very differently over here. So what was your experience like in the first few months?
Sure. I think my expectations were quite realistic in terms of what I would expect here, the challenges I would face. But I would say, like, doing an undergraduate degree in India, you get quite used to everything just being handed over to you. And that's something like a habit that you build over time, and it's not that easy to break. So, like, once you land, you start university, they say you have all the resources, and you do. You just need to go and seek the appropriate help that you need with any
Yeah,
aspect of your university life and professional development. And
yeah,
that's certainly that something that I need to get used to, even though I knew it was there. Like
yeah,
um, you still have a few reservations at the start.
yeah. It's kind of a blank canvas, isn't it? You can paint whatever you want, and if you're
Yeah.
not used to navigating it on your own, it becomes really, really hard. Now, let's get to the job search side of things, Abhishek. At what point did you start
Mhm.
thinking about getting a job, and how did you start it? I mean, I'm sure it evolved over time, but what was your initial process like?
So for me, I started actually quite early. So I was doing a 2 years master's course. So after the first year, I already started job hunting. Well, job hunting in the sense that started networking. I'd been to a lot of networking events and university career fairs and things like that in my first year of uni. Second year, I already decided, had a lot of like internships in place.
Hmm.
So through that process, my aim was, okay, let's do networking and then try and get a job, because I'd already seen the situation with a lot of other international students who were looking for jobs after they'd graduated, traditional application
Yeah,
methods. But I found that that was a lot harder than a few of the Australian friends that I had. And
yeah.
a lot of them, they didn't go through the traditional routes. They just did
Hmm.
networking, managed to get their foot in their door. And after that, you can move your career forward.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's what I initially tried. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting point that you raised. But before I touch on that, we have about 18 viewers live on LinkedIn, but I don't see much noise. So if you're there, say hi, hello, or if you have any questions, please shoot or verify. If you think I don't look good, please say that to anything, whatever. And the point is, the more noise you make, the more that's how social media works. The more people it gets to, and the more people it's helpful to. So you mentioned about networking events,
Mhm.
something that usually international students don't indulge early on. So to explain to a traditional international student, how would you explain networking event as? Is it going to events? Is it sending random connections to on LinkedIn, or what is your definition of networking event over there?
I think like networking in Australia would be defined a bit differently than other countries. So I think from my experience, it's just networking is just a way to get to know your industry better, to get to know industry. A lot of the recruiters, what they try and do is try and get a feel of who who you are as a person before they'd actually consider
Absolutely.
to hire you, and then having to meet you for basically the whole year, like all working days. So they
Hmm.
want to know you're a person that they can actually work with, and kind of understand the way you think before, before they actually hire you. So I think networking is just that, getting to know people
Yeah.
and understanding what they do, the industry, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so that's very well explained. I think, people, especially recruiters, they hesitate to put forward your profile to a client unless they meet you in person. Now things have changed with COVID. A lot of things have changed, but they still, generally they hesitate unless they know you in person. And that is also the number one reason why migrants struggle to secure a role overseas. Say if you're applying from India or outside Australia, chances are very very less that you'll get even a call, right? So that's the number one reason over there. Okay, so awesome. So I think we met in December 2019 ish. It's been a long
Yes,
time,
that is correct.
in one of Ashida's and Priyanka's events, which they were organizing for international students. I wish they come back again, but
Hmm.
after COVID everything has changed. So, were you doing your last year final semester at that point of time, or what stage were you at that?
No, so it had already been quite a few, well, it had already been almost a year since I had graduated.
Hmm.
So the way it happened for me was I graduated end of 2018,
Okay.
but then took a break and actually got my visa. So I graduated in May of 2018. So that's when I
Hmm.
started my job search, but it was very, very focused in specific industry. So while at university, I'd done placement at LaTrobe University and at Coles,
Hmm.
data science stream. So that's what I was really focusing on, and just doing a lot of networking in that space. So I
Yeah.
think when we met, that was the point where I had kind of expanded my search,
Yeah.
not just data science roles, but also business analyst roles,
Yeah.
and so on, to
All
get
right.
a bit
Excellent.
more of a flavor of what was out there. Yeah,
Hmm. Awesome. So now let's
yeah.
get into the exciting side of the journey, and I will be talking a bit about
Hmm.
JLP, Job Search Like a Boss, which is
Yeah.
my job search community over here. And the reason I'm talking a bit about it is that journey is important.
Hmm.
How Abhishek kind of carved out that journey is very interesting, and how he landed the role is also very interesting. Now, what changed, Abhishek, once you started getting into JLB and once you started getting into our community? A lot of conversations, a lot of webinars.
Hmm.
What started changing, or what did you see that was very different from what you were trying?
Sure. I think one of the most important things that I learned was, uh, changing your perspective every now and then. So the way I first approached it was I had like a set method, and that's what I would follow.
Hmm.
Wasn't I didn't I think I have the platform to get feedback and a lot of feedback and a lot of things like resumes, applying with a different resume for different roles, cover letters, things like that, and also
Hmm.
learning from other people's experiences. So I think like coming onto your platform, the first thing that happened was I met a lot of people who were on that journey that I could speak to, and then
Yeah.
discuss with them what was working, what was not working, as well as meet people who had actually already gotten a job and they just wanted
Hmm.
to share their experience, and basically learning from them and seeing what was effective, as well as like just in general, my network and trying to see what opportunities that could open up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's important to have those conversation instead of having a very narrow approach.
Hmm.
Narrow approach is good, provided that you are going in the right direction. If you're going in
Yeah.
the wrong direction, narrow approaches can be a very frustrating journey to go on. So that's a really good point. Now, eventually, we spent a lot of time in JLB, and you decided to make that big move to regional Victoria for different reasons. So, how did you get to that decision? Because being an international graduate, um, and not having much opportunities in regional Victoria can be a big risk. So how did you get about that decision? And we'll talk more about it, but how did you give a thought to that decision in the first
Sure,
place?
sure. Well, just to clarify, it wasn't just regional Vic because now that I'm based in Adelaide, like it wasn't
Yeah.
regional Victoria that I was focusing on. It was just regional areas in general, and South Australia as
Mhm.
a whole comes under that.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think the decision just came. So, for those that don't know, Vinesh started a platform for job seekers called Job Search Like a Boss, and I've been part
Mhm.
of that, I believe, since July of
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
And through that, through conversations, one of the important things for migrants is figuring out what the next steps in terms of visa and like visa is going to be so that you can stay longer and progress your career in the country. And there were a lot of changes because of COVID, changes in visas and things like that. So after a lot of discussions in the group, I really came to the conclusion that. I had to manage the things that I could control and not really focus on things that I couldn't. So I had an opportunity so once restrictions in Victoria were lifted, to then potentially move to another area and, see if what was available there. So when the lockdown was still on, I'd actually started approaching recruiters of different areas, so different regional areas in Victoria, as well as mainly Adelaide in South Australia. And once that I felt that I had traction in a specific area, so for me, Adelaide, I decided, because it's a thing that I can control, I
Yeah.
should take the risk,
Yeah.
go there, and then, see what the opportunity, if I can convert, one of the opportunities that were coming up.
Absolutely brilliant. I just realized I kept saying regional Victoria when I meant regional Australia. My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Correction. I'll have to correct every part of it. No, I'm not going to correct anyways. But that's a very good point. So you started reaching out to recruiters across Australia, especially
Mhm.
in regional areas. Was it mainly through LinkedIn or phone calls, or how did you approach them? And when they came to know that you were based in Melbourne, what sort of response did they give you?
Sure. So I think my strategy to reaching out to recruiters, and not just recruiters, but just HR in companies and different professionals working in companies in general, was uh, that just reach out through any means that you have. I think we did
Hmm.
a workshop in JLB about reaching out to people.
Yeah.
And then we had one of the goals of, just reaching out, doing cold calls, cold
Hmm.
messages, cold emails to a lot of people. So that's what I started to practice and got quite comfortable with it. So what I did was I contacted my network, my friends in different places, and said, "Hey, do you know any recruiters, or any people from these specific companies that I'm interested
Hmm.
in that I could just chat to? Not
Yeah.
necessarily asking them, 'Hey, I want a job. I'm moving there,' or anything like that. Uh, I would just call them, have a coffee catch up or a virtual catch up, and then ask them how the market was like. Told them about myself, and told them that I was thinking of moving there, but starting out, with just a very friendly conversation, not really getting into the weeds and,
Yeah.
really saying, "Oh, this is the profile I'm looking for," or anything like
Hmm.
that. Just getting to know people.
Yeah.
And then as you gradually follow up, you start to get more information. And that's when, you can start the conversation. So that's the strategy I implemented as well.
Yeah.
Just reached out to, recruiters and professionals,
Awesome.
and then, yeah.
So such a golden point in there in how to approach and what not to say. Most
Yeah.
importantly, what not to ask. Right. That is the crux of how you network and how you talk to people and have conversations around it. A quick question: you mentioned that after that initial conversation, you started following up on them. And this is a question that kind of confuses a lot of people.
Mhm.
How do you follow up with people? So, what was your technique? Like, do you message people on LinkedIn, or do you have a call with them, or do you send an email? So, just a curious question.
Sure. I think depends on the person you're talking to. So you'll have
Hmm.
different strategies. So like, say a person who's a recruiter working for a recruitment company, they are quite used to having, job seekers approach them. And as
Hmm.
long as you have a good rapport with them, I believe it's okay to call them almost every week. So
Awesome.
every week you call them, you see like what the market is like, what sort of jobs they might have available, because a lot of the recruiters are contracted with specific companies, so they know way in advance if jobs are going to come up. So you can ask them, and if they say, okay, the market is, not very active, then you can just tell them, hey, is it all right if I catch up with you in 2 weeks? And initially you'll always just want to call them in a very casual way. If you just call them straight away and
Yeah.
be like, hey, you have a new role or something like that, you're not really building rapport. So it's something you really have to do gradually, but I think you can follow up every week or maybe every 2 weeks.
Excellent.
And then in terms of like professionals like working in companies or HR professional working in companies, that time frame would be a bit longer because things don't change as often. So I would say 3 to 4 weeks you can have like a reminder set, and it's
Mm.
always nice to catch up, see what's going on in their life, in their in their working life. And then that way, if there is something, especially with HR in specific companies or working professionals, they'll let you know that, hey, we're looking for a business analyst, data analyst, and then you can kind of inquire if that's going to be the right role for you.
Awesome. So picking up the phone and having a conversation every week is also allowed, right? So people who are watching
Yes.
this, start picking up your phone. Very important skill to have. So that's a very good point.
Yeah. I just
Again,
to
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
just to mention that, initially to get the conversation started, emailing things can be nice, but it's definitely slower than if you have the phone number, picking it up, get the
Yeah,
conversation going. Once they know who you are, they will check out your LinkedIn and things like that. So it's good to have that prepped.
absolutely.
But yeah, email can be a lot slower, I've found.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just to nudge our viewers. Again, 17 viewers on LinkedIn, not a single comment. I'm starting to worry if our feed is not all right. So, hi, hello to everyone. Now, let's get into how you executed this process. Now,
Sure.
you decided to move to Adelaide. You packed your bags and moved to
Mhm.
Adelaide. What sort of response did you see here, or how did you set yourself up for whatever came next?
Sure, I think we will still have to back up like 1 or 2 months. So
Go for it.
before I moved here, I think I definitely had a plan in place in terms of people I needed to reach out to. So I already started to have those conversation, virtual catch-ups. I think I pretty much contacted every major recruiter here and started to approach people that I knew in companies that I knew hired business and data analysts. And that was basically a 2 month process. And every time I caught up with someone, I would set up a date to see when I can touch base with them again. And at the same time, I knew like once I moved, if opportunities were there, I'd have to be very prepared. So in terms of like, people think that you get an interview, that's when you prepare and everything will work out. But in reality, you really need to have everything prepared, everything from your phone 30-second phone pitch. If a
Hmm.
recruiter calls you saying they have this role, why are you the right candidate or anything like that, and all the basic uh, like general interview questions, as well as more technical questions specific to your field. Because if like someone calls you up and they say they have a role, it's technically a telephone interview.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you really need to have the right answers to impress them. So
Yeah.
that's where I think I really started. And it also had to do a lot with, so I was quite active in terms of the in Venetia's JLB community,
Hmm.
and we had like I think discussions 4 days a
Yeah.
week. So really having a plan and just following through with that before actually moving. So by the time that I actually moved to Adelaide, I already had, I think, 10 coffee catch up with the recruiters and
Oh,
different
that's
company
awesome.
HRs lined up. So I moved in early December of last year, And basically, from week one, I was already meeting them. A lot of the times, they didn't really have roles for me, but it was good that they knew my profile in detail. So they could, from their end, if as long as they were happy with me, they could go out into the market and then try and find a role, because that's beneficial to them as well.
Yeah, excellent. So, how did the things work out in the end? We are getting to the conclusion of the story.
Sure. So it was quite a short period of time where all of this happened. So I moved around second week of December, had a few catch ups. Second and third week of Jan went to interviews at like 4 or 5 different companies.
Mhm.
Got offer letter on third week of December. That was the company I was hoping I would get an offer
Yep.
from, so I accepted it straight away, and
Awesome.
basically started as a technical writer and business analyst at ARTC in first of Feb of this year.
Excellent. Excellent. So you can see if you watch this video from the beginning, or if you're watching a replay of this, you can see how organized and methodical Abhishek was, and getting that job was in the end the easy part. I wouldn't say easy part, but he had a well planned, really good plan and executed it well. But there was a lot of hard work behind the scenes. Now, again, to reiterate what his challenges were, he had very less experience. He was an international student. He moved to regional Australia, not Victoria, regional Australia. Um, and of course, the visa issues that
Mhm.
every international student say, right? He had a plan, he executed it, he got the job. Right. It wasn't as simple as I say it is, but there is a way out of it. If you just sit at home and bitch about everything else that's happening on your life and don't act on it, it's very likely to go to have a frustrating journey for you. Mind you, even though Abhishek did a lot of stuff, it still took him. I mean, I think you said you were in JLB since August. It still took him like 4 to 5 months to get into the level where he was ready to go.
Mhm.
Right. So it takes time. And those preparations are important. It's not just like you apply one fine day, you get an interview call and shit. Like, getting through that interview is a whole different story. So you have to prepare, you have to figure out what roles you can apply to, you have to figure out what is your top skills, and present yourself well. So once you do that and people know who you are, the rest is just about time, and which worked out well for you. Another challenge that you had is you found this role during the December January
Mhm.
time, which people say you won't get any job during that time. So it all worked well in the end, and it's a very nice story. If any international student watching this, please watch this again and figure out what Abhishek did. So that's really interesting stuff. Now, I think I've touched on most of the points that I wanted to talk to you. Now, what would your advice to other international students be at the moment? Because the circumstances are very different.
Mhm.
COVID, lockdown, a lot of stuff happening. What would your advice to them be?
Sure. I think my main advice would be not being afraid to reach out. And if you feel that you're uncomfortable because of various things, if your communication skills aren't there, or your confidence isn't there, I think as long as you reach out to either people in your industry or your profession, there's always people who are ready to help out. So if you feel you need a career coach, or you feel you need to be part of a community to improve your communication skills or something like that, just do it. Don't like wait and be like, oh, I'll apply and I'll get an offer, or I'll get an interview. The preparation really needs to be there before you actually reach that interview. So I would say start early, and yeah, try and face your fears. I think that's what will progress you the most,
Brilliant
um,
point, Abhishek. Yeah.
as compared to being passive. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent point, Abhishek. And I've since the day I met, I've always mentioned that your voice is your strongest point. So use it as much as you can. And I'm sure people watching this also, your voice is very different and it's very special. So you can use that to make a better impact or a huge impact. So well done holding on
Thank
that.
you, Vinesh.
Is there anything else? I missed to have a conversation if anything is there, or otherwise we can conclude this session. Nothing.
Uh, are there any questions from the audience that
No,
before?
I'm still seeing a very silent audience. I'm not sure. So there are a few comments, by the way. I can pull them
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
So Reshma says, "Congratulations, Abhishek, on a new role. Looking forward to your story." It was so. Reshma was one of the GLP members as well, and of course,
Yeah.
Ankit, as
Okay.
always, he is watching from the metro train, and yeah, others are just hi from Sydney. So Reshma says hi. Jasmine says hi. But not much comments, which I'm surprised. I was expecting more comments, but hopefully it will come along the way. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, whichever wherever you're watching this from. Ask questions, and you can reach out to me or Abhishek to get more answers on his journey, or if you want any general help, you can reach out to me as well. So Abhishek, I think LinkedIn would be the best place for people to reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely. Drop me a message on LinkedIn if just want to network or have a chat. I'd be happy to have that.
Sure. Awesome. So that's that for today. Hope you all enjoyed that story. It's a very interesting story and a lot of nuggets to be pulled. It basically bursts a lot of myths. You can't get a job if you're an international student. You can't get a job if you have no experience. You can't get a job in December and January. You can't get a job in regional Australia. So it basically bursts a lot of myths. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's very much doable, and you can make a plan to achieve that. So I'll be coming back with more stories, but until then, bye bye.
Bye.